What's going on, you guys? It's Eli with Common Sense. It's a cozy winter afternoon. Actually, it's not afternoon. It is after work. It's like really late in the evening, but got my coffee here, got my kahwa. I learned that it's Arabic for coffee. So I got my coffee and I'm ready to record my video. I hope you're having a wonderful week and we're gonna be looking at some fragrances today. Also, look at how cool this cup is. My coworker got this for me for Christmas and this is one of my favorite new cups. It's perfect for coffee, for chai, for tea, anything that you want, and it fits perfectly in your hand, and it's just a cool kind of Japanese style of cup. So I don't know, thought I'd share that with you guys. So lately I've been seeing a lot of the Lattafa vintage fragrances popping up. So I already reviewed the Lattafa Vintage Radio. You can actually check out the video up here. I did it in a haul, but I'll leave a timestamp to that in the description if you want to check out just that fragrance. Frankly, it is very hard to get 14 or 15 hours out of a fragrance, and for something that costs around the $30 to $40 mark, that is unheard of. Today we're going to be looking at two fragrances from the La Collection des Antiques. So I'm really excited to talk about these two fragrances today, and we're gonna check those out right now, so stay tuned. Here we have the 1886 and here we have the 1910. So this one, it's got a couple names online. People have been calling it car. It's the 1886 one, and then this is the motorcycle one. I actually purchased these from tripletraders.com. Now, Triple Traders is not always going to have the greatest prices. Some of their fragrances can be a little bit expensive, but for these brand new fragrances, they were the only ones who happen to have them in stock under the $60 mark. I think they were right around $50. So if you want to check out these fragrances, you can get them from tripletraders.com, and if you use my code COMMONSENSE, you can save 10%. So if these do pop up cheaper somewhere else, obviously you can check those out, but that's just where I bought mine, and I really do like the kind of offerings that they have and the care that they put into packaging these. First up, we have La Collection des Antiquités 1886. I feel like my inner Kevin O'Leary is coming out every time that I say La Collection.
The collection, the collection.
Gotta love that guy. You have this embossed vintage car logo on the front, and on the back, of course, you have your classic Lattafa holographic stickers with some of the Lattafa Pride logos on the back and the information. So inside this box, we have a truly unique kind of presentation, and we have a really nice sturdy box. It's metallic. It's kind of a bronze copper that kind of ties into that vintage bronze look from the last kind of century. But if you open this up, encased inside is this gorgeous fragrance bottle, that beautiful matte white rubberized exterior, and a beautiful bronze cap. There is so much detail that goes into this 3D bronze car on the front. It's a really unique effect because it's 3D. It sticks out from the bottle quite a bit, as you can see, and it just has a really, really unique effect to it. Let's give this a spray. This stuff smells amazing, and I have been wearing these all week. I've been wearing this one and the 1910 to see how long it lasts and to see exactly how it transforms. Forgot to also show that they include a booklet of all of their upcoming releases, including some of the notes on their new ones. Like, look at some of these designs and tell me these don't pique your interest as a collector. This is dangerous. I'm gonna spend all my money. In comparison to the Vintage Radio, these bottles are a little bit thicker, they're a little bit wider, and they're not quite as tall, but I believe you are still getting the 100 ml presentation. It's just squashed a little bit and transformed just a little bit. 1886 has top notes of bergamot mate with heart notes of cinnamon bark, bran, and base notes of tonka bean and jasmine. So quite an interesting makeup of the notes, and there's been a lot of debate on the comments in some of my previous YouTube shorts and just online. What the heck does this smell like? Because I've smelled quite a lot of fragrances in my time, and I really can't quite pin down what this one is trying to be close to, because Vintage Radio is an Initio Paragon clone. And this one, I really don't know, because some people were saying it could be a Dior Homme Intense, and it's been so long since I've smelled that one. I gotta say, this truly smells unique, and I don't have anything in my collection that smells just like this, so it's a little bit mysterious and a little bit elusive. So I completely forgot that my awesome cousin Stanley let me borrow his Dior Homme Intense, and he actually let me make a decant of it. So thank you, Stanley. We're gonna see if it smells exactly like that. So are these the same fragrance? They are not. They smell very different in the opening. Of course, the Dior Homme Intense has a much stronger iris, which is why it really didn't register that it smelled the same. I think it's safe to say it's a little bit inspired by Dior Homme Intense, but it is not Dior Homme Intense. It is not the same thing. You're not gonna be getting the same DNA. And for those people wondering if it's the same, it is not. The opening on this one is extremely fresh, powdery, and sugary. So I almost get a sweet, chalky, powdery candy, almost like a sweet tart. So something like those sweeter, sugary candies that you get around Easter. But the bergamot really does keep it juicy. It's a little bit tart, and it's got quite a bit of zing in the opening. The mate helps with the green, calming, herbaceous facet on this one. And it just smells very earthy, a little bit powdery, but definitely very sweet. I'm still getting that cinnamon, spicy kind of wheat-like accords that you find in something like the Lattafa Pride. So that one also has a bran accord. It's got some dates in this one, and I feel like this also could have a little bit of date in there. I could be wrong, but it's a little bit similar to this one without that harsh licorice. So this is going to be more of a tonka and slightly floral take to that Ajwa DNA. But this one is fantastic on its own, but I gotta say, I've been wearing this one a lot more, and this is a lot more office friendly. So on paper, it may seem like a headache inducing sweet mess, but that is not what this is. It's a delicate candied bergamot at the top with a beautiful vanillic base and a little bit of that cinnamon and bran. It almost smells like a chai latte. It's creamy, it's a little bit floral from that jasmine, and it's a little bit waxy, but at the same time, you have a beautiful vanillic kind of nutty tonka bean at the base that blends really nicely with some of those heart notes and the top notes. It reminds me of a sweet tart with a beautiful, sweet, spicy tea. Depending on how many hours it's been since you've sprayed this fragrance, some notes will jump off the skin a little bit more and then they'll kind of back away. That cinnamon really does cut through, but at times it's really fresh and at other times it's very sweet and it's very dark. It's kind of a cool surprise. So depending on how long it's been since you've sprayed it, you'll get something a little bit different. In the dry down, you lose a lot of the freshness and it turns a little bit darker, especially that tonka. It comes out, it's vanillic, and the jasmine definitely comes off a little bit more floral, but it still smells absolutely incredible. And you still have that slightly powdery, almost a lavender and bergamot kind of vibe on this one. It also turns slightly musky and it still has a little bit of that fruit, but ultimately you have a spiced tea with a little bit of tonka, vanilla, and some of that mate. Really unique stuff here. And again, I can't quite put my finger on what exactly this is cloning. Could be some elements of Dior Homme Intense, could be something like Rahab, who knows? If you're buying this thinking it's Yola Blue, looking it up on Fragrantica, comparing the notes, this is not that. This is something in its own league. In terms of performance, this one is fantastic. It's really strong for the first 5 to 6 hours, and honestly, a little bit longer than that. It's a very smooth drop from the opening to the base, so it's not going to die off like some designer fragrances. You are going to just transition nicely into the dry down, and it still really goes strong even in that dry down. Just like the Vintage Radio, it's going to last you all day, and I feel like this one may last maybe 1 or 2 hours less than Vintage Radio, but still well after that 12-hour mark, and it's kind of hard to keep track. Absolutely amazing stuff from Lattafa Pride, and that's 1886. Next up is 1910. This particular fragrance I actually showed to my father because he rides motorcycles and he loved this one. It got my dad's seal of approval, so he loved it just because of the design, and he thought it smelled really good too.
His father approved. The oud is outstanding. That's all I...
Same thing, you have this beautiful bronze metallic clasp that opens up, and you have the beautiful fragrance bottle here. I feel like the motorcycle model that they used here was inspired by a motorcycle. It's not exactly correct mechanically, but I think it definitely gets the job done and the idea across, and I still applaud them for their creativity. I just love these 3D bottles. They look so cool on the shelf, and I love that they're 3D. 1910 has top notes of rose, apple, and divana with middle notes of osmanthus, cedarwood, and base notes of tonka. So this is a really really interesting fragrance. And at first, when I sprayed this and tried this on my skin, I didn't love it so much. I felt like it was something that you'd maybe find out of the house of Paco Rabanne. I can't stand the Paco Rabanne fragrances. I think they're incredibly tacky, the bottles, and they're just very loud, they're clubbing fragrances, and it really just draws the focus onto your fragrance rather than you as a person. So that's my 2 cents, but I think this is definitely inspired by some of that sweetness, and it does it in a beautiful, beautiful way that does not at all induce the headaches like I kind of first thought it would do. Where do I begin? The rose and the apple smell incredible here. The apple is very crisp, it's a little bit tart, but the rose adds a little bit of a smokiness, and you get quite a bit of that tonka and the osmanthus. So the osmanthus is a slightly peachy, syrupy floral that's actually seen a lot in the Parfums de Marly fragrances. Now, on Parfums de Marly, I believe this one is a spin-off, a twist on Parfums de Marly's Carlisle. That is a beautiful vanillic, spicy fragrance that reminds me a little bit of Spice Bomb by Viktor and Rolf. I think this definitely takes inspiration from that Carlisle and slightly designer Paco Rabanne, Viktor Rolf, Spice Bomb kind of DNA. But this does it in such a great way. Again, I first sprayed this on my skin and I hated it, but I gave it a couple wears and my heart softened. I was like the Grinch. My heart grew many sizes, and this has become one of my favorite releases from the House of Lattafa. This also has a little bit of Davana in there, so it's a slightly green quality, but it's not too in your face. It just balances out a little bit and makes it smell slightly green, a little bit herbaceous, but I think that apple really opens everything up, and when combined with the tonka bean, it really just gives that sweet, vanillic, creamy, gourmand vibe that you really want from a winter fragrance. So this is definitely a date night fragrance. I think anybody can pull this off. It's definitely more masculine leaning. I swear, this stuff is intoxicating. There's something in it. If you love fruity, sort of tonka and vanilla heavy fragrances, you are going to be pulling compliments left and right, and you are going to feel amazing wearing this one. It's also worth noting it reminds me a little bit of Azzaro's Wanted and maybe English Laundry's Crown, so kind of reminds me of that Carlisle Most Wanted DNA. But this really is in a league of its own, and I have got compliments wearing this one just the couple times that I actually did wear it out, and I remember people saying this smells really strong, but it smells very, very nice. This stuff right here, 100% recommend. Overall, the rose, apple, and osmanthus I think is a wonderful combination in this. I think that trifecta really gives it some magic. I think they knocked it out of the park with this one, and I think this one is a 10 out of 10 fragrance. I think this one's more of a 14-hour fragrance, so this one's gonna last a little bit longer, just like Lattafa Vintage Radio, so you're going to be getting solid projection for half the day at least. And like the last one, it transitions very slowly, and you still get a wonderful power even in the dry down, those many hours after your work. When you spray it in the first, when you wake up, you still smell it in the afternoon and even into the evening. So this is the perfect winter fall fragrance all around for under 60 bucks. So that's kind of mind-blowing. And that one is La Collection de Antiquities 1910, aka the motorcycle. So you might be asking yourself, do I want to pay near designer prices for my Middle Eastern fragrances? Because in the past, the Middle Eastern fragrance game has been performing wonderful around that $20 to $30 mark. You get amazing projection, and frankly, you do get a nice composition, but I haven't smelled anything from these Middle Eastern fragrance companies, maybe Nabil, but as you pay more for this presentation and the quality of the juice inside, there's just something that makes you feel like it's definitely more worth it. I've said in a previous video, there is a psychology to owning more expensive fragrances, paying for that niche level, because it tells yourself that I am worth this, I am worth the $200 or $300, and it's the way that you carry yourself. So if you buy an expensive fragrance, that's how you're going to view yourself. If you want to smell like that and you don't want to spend that right away, I think this is a perfect opportunity to get on this Middle Eastern trend of slightly more expensive fragrances that are maybe a little bit cheaper than the designers, but they blow the quality out of the water. So you are going to be getting an amazing quality presentation. And I honestly got that feeling when I opened these up, when I pulled it out of the sleeve and I slowly opened it up and saw the fragrance staring at me inside. I got really giddy, and I got that kind of feeling that this is quality. With some of the cheaper Lattafas and Middle Eastern fragrances, You do get a quality, but the packaging is very cheap. The presentation isn't always the greatest, and in reality, it's not going to smell one-to-one to the fragrances that they are copying. But this line of Lattafa vintage fragrances is perfect. And I gotta tip my hat to Lattafa for making these fragrances for under $100 and for giving us a wonderful quality for that price. All in all, definitely worth the price. But if you want to take yourself more seriously and step up to that $50 Middle Eastern fragrance category, I think it's definitely worth it because you are going to be surprised at how well these smell. Thank you for listening to my very long-winded discussion about Middle Eastern fragrances and why they are worth it when they are more expensive, because you get what you pay for. And if you're trying to not spend money, I'm so sorry. That does it for this video. If you enjoyed this content or this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing and turning on the notifications because I upload a couple times per week. I'm also going to be doing a giveaway very soon. So I have a couple giveaways lined up at the end of the year, early start of the next year. So stay tuned, hit that notification bell because there's going to be some really cool giveaways coming up and I'm excited. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Eli with Common Sense, and until the next time, bye-bye. Carlisle most wanted DNA, but we're gonna pretend I didn't do that.